Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a really close look at your everyday English vocabulary to see if we can, well, wake it up a bit. We're going to move away from those sleepy, uninspired fallback words to something much more dynamic and engaging. If you want to sound like a native speaker who really knows their way around a proper conversation, you are absolutely in the right place. So let's dive right into this explainer and elevate your English. Let me ask you a very honest question. Are you just tired? Think about your daily conversations for a second. Are you still telling everyone you're tired every single time they ask how you're doing? You've got to stop letting your English sound so sleepy. Honestly, using tired as your constant fallback word is holding your conversational skills back big time. Look, it's pretty easy to see why this is an issue. On the one hand, you've got I'm tired, and on the other, you have fine thanks. Now, both of these phrases are completely 100% correct grammatically, but honestly, they're kind of conversational dead ends. Answering I'm tired is exactly like answering fine thanks. It's correct, sure, but it's just so incredibly boring. It completely shuts down the conversation instead of inviting the listener in. We really want to replace that dead end with something way more charming and expressive. So let's get into section 1, the art of exaggeration, and how upgrading your everyday vocabulary can really change the game. Native speakers absolutely love a good everyday exaggeration to really drive a point home and keep their stories engaging. It's actually a fundamental linguistic tool, and it follows a surprisingly clear formula. Just think about your basic feelings: hungry, cold, surprised. We naturally amplify these things when we talk, right? When we're hungry, we don't just say, I'm hungry, we say, I'm starving. When the temperature drops, we aren't just cold, we're freezing. We even say we jumped out of our skin when we get a good scare. So the crucial point here is this. If we follow this exact formula for everything else, why in the world should we settle for a plain old tired when a day has been absolutely exhausting? Using linguistic exaggerations totally expands your vocabulary and makes people actually want to listen to your stories. Which brings us to section 2, high energy fatigue and the absolute best expressions for an exhausting day. Okay, it's time to ramp up the energy and upgrade your vocabulary with some heavy-hitting exaggerations that native English speakers actually use out there in the real world. Let's kick things off with knackered. This simply means extremely tired or exhausted. Just imagine you've just wrapped up a brutal double shift at work, or maybe you've spent the entire weekend chasing a toddler around the house. You aren't just tired at that point? No way. You are knackered. It's a fantastic, super colorful exaggeration. It's got this great punchy sound to it, and it instantly signals to whoever you're talking to that you've had a massively demanding day and literally have zero energy left in the tank. Next up, we have a wonderfully dramatic word, shattered, which means completely exhausted and devoid of energy. Think about the imagery here for a second. If you drop a glass on the floor, it shatters into 100 tiny pieces, right? Well, when you tell someone you are shattered, you're conveying an extreme, highly dramatic level of fatigue. You're saying your energy isn't just low, it is entirely depleted. Imagine running a full marathon and then trying to host a fancy dinner party right after. You would be absolutely shattered. It is such a vibrant, high-energy alternative to simply saying you need a nap. And to round out this fast-paced heavy-hitter list, we have the idiom dead on one's feet. This basically means you are extremely tired, but you're somehow continuing to function or stand. Picture a really busy restaurant server during the holiday rush, literally running from table to table for hours on end without a single break. They're still moving, they're still taking orders, but physically, they are completely spent. They are dead on their feet. It is a highly visual, incredibly dramatic idiom that perfectly captures that feeling of pushing right through the absolute limits of your physical endurance. Moving right along to section 3, the stiff upper lip. This is all about being honest without the fuss. Sometimes you aren't bouncing off the walls with dramatic physical exhaustion. Sometimes you might be tired simply because life is just feeling, well, a bit heavy. And we need a different kind of vocabulary for that more intimate, grounded feeling. This actually builds on a very famous British concept of Stoicism called the stiff upper lip. It's the cultural behavior of being honest about the fact that things are tough or emotionally draining, but deliberately choosing not to make a big fuss about it. It's a quiet sort of strength, really, and English has some specific phrases to match this exact mood perfectly. So instead of a boring I'm tired, try using phrases like hanging in there or hanging on in there. These phrases are brilliantly stoic. They perfectly capture that distinct feeling that things are a bit tough or exhausting, but you're just about getting through the days. You aren't necessarily thriving, but hey, you haven't let go of the rope either. If a friend asks how work is going during a particularly stressful month, replying with hanging in there is totally honest. It conveys your fatigue but without complaining or making a scene. It's a very resilient way to express yourself. And if you're tired but still feeling fundamentally positive, you could use the classic phrase, mustn't grumble. I absolutely love this one. It's just the perfect way to acknowledge that life might be a bit of a struggle at the moment, but you're actively choosing to keep your chin up. You're tired, sure, but you're deciding not to complain despite the struggle. It adds so much personality to your response, and it lets the other person know that you're maintaining a positive outlook even when your energy is running a bit low. Finally, let's take a look at Section 4, the full English vocabulary. It's time to add some real flavor to your words. To truly understand why all of this matters, I want you to think about your vocabulary like a proper full English breakfast, or a fry-up as it's often called. Now, you wouldn't just serve a plate of plain toast and call it a satisfying meal, would you? Of course not. Plain toast is far too basic. A proper fry-up needs sensory details. You want the crispy bacon. You want the perfectly runny yolk of a fried egg. You want that gentle sizzle of the sausages. Just like a proper breakfast needs all those different elements to be satisfying, your English needs different flavors of words to be truly effective. The plain toast? Well, that's I'm tired. It'll keep a conversation alive, sure, but it isn't deeply satisfying. You really need the crispy bacon of knackered and the runny yolk of mustn't grumble to make your everyday conversations rich, memorable, and super engaging. So, the absolute crucial takeaway for you is this. Avoid the most basic word in the dictionary when your energy dips. The next time you feel tired, I really want you to remember this toolkit we've built today. Remember the dramatic, high-energy exaggerations like shattered or dead on your feet. Remember the grounded, stoic phrases like hanging in there. You have all these vibrant flavors at your disposal right now, so there is absolutely no reason to ever settle for boring conversational dead ends again. Which brings us to a question directly for you. How are you actually feeling today? I want you to be totally honest with me right now. Take everything we just went over and evaluate your state at this very second. Are you hanging in there? Are you completely shattered? Or perhaps you really can't complain because everything is going brilliantly. Drop your answers down below. Let's practice this vibrant new vocabulary together. And please, let's try to avoid I'm tired just for today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep your learning focused and dynamic. Catch you next time.